Okay. Thank you so much. All right, so we are now into our second panel, and then now we are talking about the various models that you can actually explore for your idea. And this is very important because we talk about like branding, about experience earlier on, market segment that you target, and the kind of model needs to be a fit as well into for the idea that you're having, right? And the model also have an impact in terms of the financials. Yeah, so we're going to discuss this important topic in detail. We have Kian Ping. So round of applause for our speaker. We have Yi Xian. We have heard a bit about him earlier on. So first of all, I think I will invite Kian Ping to share about his journey so far. I think it's really unique. He is both, not just looking at how to make the business work in terms of profit, but also in terms of purpose. Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Kian Ping. So I'm the founder of the Social Kitchen. So Social Kitchen was founded during COVID time to provide a runway for F&Bs and also to provide a runway for the property side. So then the other part of it is that we are also a social impact company. So basically what we do is that we take our properties and we bring established F&B brands. But at the same time, we want F&B brands to actually hire people from the vulnerable communities. So for example, the special needs, the single mothers or ex-convicts to work for them. So we work with a lot of property developers like Landis. We work with property developers like Lamcham Group, all the shopping malls, all this kind of thing. So this is where we do the kind of like so you look at us, we are more like a WeWork, but for the retailers. So what we do is like we take over spaces. So we have we took over spaces from Landis at PLQ. So we have 2,800 square feet with Landis in PLQ. So where Landis actually invested in the property. So they actually pump in money for us to build a kitchen there. It's a $400,000 kitchen. So we brought in high-end brand like CN to operate the space. So we also, not just high-end brands we brought in, we also go for like your daily food like Spring Prata. So we take over spaces for Spring Prata to operate in it. So what we do is we are also an ESG companies for all these listed companies, especially like Landis or Abu Dhabi investment, they are huge. So basically what they need to do is that they need to do reporting every year. So when we acquire spaces, we help them to build this kind of like F&B brands, curate the kind of F&B brands that's not available in all the shopping mall. So our model is that we don't want to build another Tong Lot, another Paradise, another McDonald's. So we want to build like CN because CN is very niche kind of market. So it's not available everywhere. So they are operating in Maxwell where they serve lawyers and bankers. So this is the first time we brought CN from high-end into a fast casual dining. So this is what we do. And then the other part of it is that we also used to collaborate with Capital Group I12, where there is about 20 cloud kitchen. So we built. So this is the first time a cloud kitchen operates out of a shopping mall, in prime shopping mall at Katong. So we brought in all the major brands like like CN. We bring into like a hawker store kind of model inside a cloud kitchen, and then we brought in like Otoko Ramen, a Japanese ramen store. Very established within the Japanese community. So this is how we do for the F&B brands and the landlord. So the other part of it is that we also want to help the community. So in order to help the community, we will bring people like the special needs or single mothers. So the reason why we hire the special needs and single mothers is during COVID time, I think these are the first group of people to be laid off. So then, because I sit on some of the charities as a board member, so we realized that it's quite a tough thing, especially tough time. So this is why we thought we kind of like marriage the property, the F&B, and then with the social kind of work, I think that becomes a whole ecosystem on its own. So this is why we do anyway, but for example, Spring Prata, when we first started, I brought in the special needs, all this, they say, we are not a charity, man, we know how to manage the special needs, all that kind of thing. So we thought Spring Prata, no, we will help you to manage the special needs. At the same time, we also help the property landlord to become the social part, the ESG part. So then everyone gain from this. And then after that, Spring Prata is able to kind of leverage on the special needs to hire more special needs. This is what, and the other thing is that what we did with CN is that, for example, a fine dining restaurant like CN, all this, it's the first time we hire special needs to serve, the corporate clients, or bankers and things like that. So before that, I was talking to Igis also, the 3-star Michelin, to do this kind of concept as well. So that's how we started off.
Wow, I think you're managing a lot, and I really appreciate that. Why you entered the industry, starting off with Social Kitchen, which is now rebranded as a humanities department, is how you saw, you could bring something unique to to the ecosystem, right? And I think over time you realize that you basically are very good at connecting and bring different parties together to make it work for the social, I guess, the F&B businesses that have social impact. I think that's really brilliant and beautiful. So because of the topic, right now I'm going to kind of asking both of you, or maybe starting with Ishan, what are some of the models that entrepreneurs want to go into F&B to explore?
Yeah. So I think briefly covered that just now during the introduction piece, but maybe a summary and then dive a bit more into it. So again, one, obviously starting something from scratch. Two, acquiring an existing business, and then three, franchise, right? Okay, thanks very much for the reminder, guys. But I think when you're looking at it, and I'll go a bit more high level because obviously there's a panel and we can talk about it a bit more later. But I'll go with like the pros and cons for each one really quickly, right? So if you're looking at it from starting a new business from scratch, the beauty of that is that you can obviously build whatever you want, right? It can be whatever brand you want, it can be whatever concept you want, you can design the space in whatever manner you want to, and obviously you have full control over the menu and stuff like that. I think the issue that comes with that from the con side is that obviously you're building something from scratch, you're building a brand from scratch. So I mean, for all of you that have done different businesses, whether it's a tech business, whether it's retail, whether it's F&B, the issue, or I guess maybe the opportunity, is that you have to be able to find a way to get more customers or new customers. Like, why is someone going to come to you to try your food, or why is someone to come to try your drinks if you're starting something new? I think a lot of people, when they first start F&B, all their friends and family will come for the first 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? And so I know many an F&B person who says, oh my gosh, I'm going to do amazing, because in that first few weeks they make a lot of money and they say, oh, this is going to be great. But what happens when it plateaus? What happens when it actually becomes equilibrium and obviously your friends and family aren't coming? Can you actually draw normal customers, people who are strangers and people you don't know? The second model, which I went with, was essentially acquired an existing business, right? So I bought over Jekyll and Hyde. One, because I thought it would be easy. I think we spoke about this. They spoke about it earlier, but I thought it would be easy to start a business, and I thought it would be a good side income. It became not income, but rather a cost center for myself personally. And secondly, I was like, oh, a great place to bring dates. But anyways, but I think where it's a good thing, obviously, is there's an existing customer base. People are already going there on a daily basis, right? They know it exists. And frankly speaking, I mean, on the back end, they don't know who runs it to a certain extent, right? And so if they enjoy the food or they enjoy the drinks and all that, that is great. I think where it becomes a challenge is, one, do you actually know how to run a business first off? And then secondly, how do you make sure when you take over the business that you know is how to grow the business and how to iterate on that business? Because at the end of the day, you're buying over a business that is existing, but you cannot keep it at equilibrium. You cannot keep it at a certain level, right? You have to be able to figure out how to make it better. If not, you're going to not be able to make your money back, right? Even if they say that they're profitable and you're going to be able to recoup your money in a certain number of weeks or days or months or whatnot, there's still the incremental piece that you want to look at. And then thirdly, from a franchise perspective, to a certain extent, I think it can be both, I guess both good and bad. I mean, the great thing about any franchise is that, people generally would know the brand. So whether you're doing KFC or whether you're doing McDonald's or 7-Eleven or whatnot, franchise models work in the sense that obviously there is support, right? You are coming into a business where you probably don't have to think about things as much, because they will tell you how to cook the food, or they'll provide the supplies, etc. and all that. And so you think about it from that perspective, that it would be easier for you to do that. And there's probably also a consolidation of marketing, etc. and all that. So while you have to pay a franchise fee, which can be anywhere from 4 to 5 to 10%, while that is an incremental cost, you also have the, I guess, advantage of having an existing business that isn't something that is only a single independent business, but rather something at scale, right? But I think we see obviously franchises that do well, some that don't do so well. I think a case in point was Ixtlat. I think they came into the market, into Singapore at the beginning, they did really well. There were really long lines, but I live fairly nearby, and every time I ran by after a while, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no one here anymore. So there's certainly an allure when it comes to franchises, but if you don't have enough support also, or the costs are too high, then that's actually where that could be a concern for you. Because at the end of the day, for any business, fundamentally, you have to look at it from the perspective of what's your underlying cost, and then can you generate enough revenue to break even or be profitable.
Thank you. I think what you had mentioned to us is really like the pros and cons between buy or build. I want to invite Kim to maybe share about the cloud model. So this is more like the operating model, which you have started during COVID. Yeah, what could be some of the pros and cons, things to consider?
I think for a cloud model during COVID time works well for us because at the end of the day it's shut down. So delivery becomes the only way you can get your food. So during COVID time we do relatively well for a cloud model. And then but post-COVID, we see there's a huge change where people prefer to dine inside restaurants rather than to do a cloud kitchen. Because cloud kitchen, when we run the cloud kitchen and I want to, even though it's a prime location, it's in a shopping mall, things like that, people still wants to see, Singaporeans are very, something strange about Singaporeans. So they need to see people cooking in front of you, then they will buy the food. I think you want to, even like vending machine, all this, they also don't like. So the other part of my business is I have another business, we are in the tech also. So they need to see people cooking and then realize that the food is fresh and things like that. So there's a challenge that I have faced. And the other challenge we face is that the cloud kitchen is that the high delivery fee by the delivery platform like Grab and things like that really kind of like is inside the margin, and it's about 30% for F&B takeaway. But you take into consideration that your food cost is about plus the delivery is about 60%. So it's kind of hard for us to kind of like survive through the cloud model. But if you are in a relatively like for example new estate like Punggol, all this, a cloud model will work well there because it's a lot of young family there. So people will be more savvy into ordering from the cloud kitchen. But if you are operating in a mature estate like Red Hill, I think you will have a big problem with it because the people there are all matured. It's about 60s and things like that. They don't even know how to use your delivery platform. So it depends on sites. So that's why we realize that. So because our cloud model, we started off in Orchard Road. So this is, no one started a cloud model, cloud kitchen in Orchard Road. We started a cloud kitchen in Orchard Road. So we realized that the delivery is not so as good. Because Orchard Road people still prefer to dine inside restaurants.
I used to be in venture capital, so we also saw the trend after COVID is that F&B, those who started in cloud always have to establish the offline. And I think this is maybe what Asian culture is like, right? We see eating together as something that families do, couples do, is an important part of our life. But obviously trying to balance both, right, is not easy. But I think it's good to kind of keep in your mind that if you were to start an F&B, you could start by having a cloud-based concept, but maybe going to offline something to consider because that will bring in the next kind of increase, right, in your sales.
But I think to Camping's point, essentially from the cloud perspective, right, because the cost is so high in terms of operating it, meaning the 25 or 35, whatever percentage it comes from your Grab or Deliveroo or whatnot, you have to bake that into your financial model immediately, right? So during COVID, we did fantastically well from a cloud perspective because again, no one could go out, so we used this platform called Auto, did great. Then you could order your food in bulk or you could order your bottled cocktails and stuff like that. But the moment COVID ended, it completely dropped off, right? And so I think you're 100% right. People would rather be in person rather than doing delivery, unless they're like lazy.
Yeah. But if you are the kind of corporates, you want to do fine dining, you cannot do a cloud model. See.
Yep.
So for example, my friend that runs a Kotu in the Capital Spring. So even though it's a fine dining spaces, like high-end spaces, they're still fully packed during weekdays time. So it kind of depends on what your F&B model is. If your F&B model is really like what you say, like CN in a PLQ, definitely you still prefer to have a dining kind of concept. It's experience. It's not the cloud. The cloud kind of take away, don't create this kind of experience.
Yep.
And taking a step back, our bootcamp is always about how can you get your toes into what you want to do first. Take some risk, build it, and test it before you really sink in lots of money in, right? So cloud model could be one that somebody can try it out. What are some of the models they can try so that they can test out their idea and see if there's demand in the market?
Yeah, the easiest one would probably be doing something from home, right? So, I think there have been a lot of home-based businesses that have been sprouting out over the past few months and years, I guess, post-COVID, right? I think Jisoo has tested that out before. And that works in a sense because I think a lot of the time, say you bake something well, or you cook something well, or you make some sort of drink well, people will say, oh, you should open a cafe, you should open a shop or whatnot. But it's BS, right? Because that is 10 people or 5 people or 15 people who are telling you it's good. But again, is that sustainable, right, when it comes to that? So it's a good test in the sense that you can obviously, one, get market feedback, two, see if you scale to a certain extent. Because if only the same 15 people come and you can't get beyond those 15 people, then you obviously know that your business model fundamentally is not going to work. Because again, it goes back to the point of, can you get strangers to order from you and not your friends and family, right? I mean, I've seen people that do really well with that, right? So I have a friend, she runs this cafe called Wisdom. So she had started baking at home, right? She was a banker, she started baking at home during COVID, but I think she had a backlog of like 1,000 orders, and that's when she realized she was going to do well, and I think she's since scaled to like 3 or 4 different outlets. But there are also a bunch of other people who obviously did different F&B at home, but then they weren't able to scale beyond that. But it's a good test bed, right? Because you have no upfront cost aside from your cost of goods, essentially.
So, we kind of talk about the various models that you can look at, whether it's in terms of your long-term business operating model, and also how do you get the tools web before expanding it. I'm also very curious to ask Kim Ping about, how do you make the numbers work for social enterprise? Because for you, it's balancing profit and purpose. I think it's an additional challenge.
I think for my side, it's because we started off with my partners always. So my partners are the bankers always. So bankers are always very good at numbers. so they used to head up JP Morgan and stuff like that. So what we do is that for any business model, we also want to make sure that we do a financial model, right? Because that's why we don't want to take risks. That's why I say we are not F&B companies. We are just providing a platform for the F&B to a runway for them to run, a runway for them to do take off. So for us is that we do arbitrage on two things. We do arbitrage on the rental and we do arbitrage on the manpower. So our model between us and the other Grab Kitchen always, actually I met up with Grab Kitchen during COVID time also, because I told them it might not be to collaborate. That was the only time they started off with 2 cloud kitchen. So our model is that we don't want to be just only a landlord to you. We wanted to be more like a service provider. So other than just offering a space for you, we also provide manpower. So this is where we can anchor them down, so they are not able to move out. This is why we say that then they are deeply entrenched with us. So even they went out, we know everything what you do, and we can always duplicate fast. So I think this is one thing we do. So we also realize that the 2 pain point about F&B in Singapore is that rental and the manpower. If we can solve these 2 pain points, the F&B will expand with me. So this is why we are able to get F&B to come on board with us, to do expansion with us. So what we do is that we provide prime location, like in Bank of Singapore, we Market Street, the level 1 lobby, that's our space. PLQ. So I used to run the Super 3 Kallang by the Bay, or the only 3 in the world that runs a cocktail bar. So we are able to get this kind of spaces. This is where the space that we give to the F&Bs are very exciting. And the other one is we provide the manpower for them. So when we first started off, we told them that, hey, I know I can solve 2 problems. So we solve you the rental problem and we solve the manpower problem. So what we do in the past is that everything comes from a central kitchen. So it comes from a central kitchen, goes in our cloud kitchen, we provide manpower just to do the heating up, and then we ship it out. So this is how we are able to do that.
Thank you. I'm so curious, in terms of capital, access to capital, are there like additional grants or something a social enterprise related business could have access to in F&B industry?
I think for the fund-wise, there's always this organization called the RAISE. So RAISE is by the government side. So the government always do seed funding. So actually we started off with the seed funding from government as well during COVID time. So government give me a sum of money to seed fund the whole business model. So because before that, actually what they do is that, they're also very particular about financing. So what they would do is that they look at the person. So what he says is that they actually invest in a person and not the business model. Because what they realize is a person that has the grit and the willpower to go through. I think that's where the funds comes in. So even you go to raise all this, even you go to Enterprise Singapore right now we are working with Enterprise Singapore to do funding for the F&Bs. But we help F&B do automations. But it also depends on who is operating it. So I think for the capital part of it is really dependent on the person itself.
For ASN, we regulation over the years. So we are also aware, I think we mean perhaps SG enable if you were to hire someone who is differently able. So these are also areas that you may want to take a look.
If you hire older people, mature people, you also can get some pretty decent grants on that also beyond a certain age.
Okay, I think the older people one will be it's
So
automatic. I think it's like
you get the salary.
you get a salary,
back,
but that
yeah.
will be like half a year later.
Yeah,
So you get the rebate half a
But
year
you
later.
do get it.
Yeah.
There are grants for like yellow ribbon,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
like salary support.
Yeah.
But that will depend on. But that is unless you hire straight from Yellow Ribbon. So if not, every year you have to do a submission. So I forgot to do my submission, so that's why. Yeah. So this is one thing like a Yellow Ribbon, and the other one will be Raise. Raise actually is they provide seed funding. They call it a Venture for Good fund. And then Raise, raising of flat.
Raise.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is they will provide. They can provide seed funding as well as they can provide salary support.
Yeah.
So that's up to $300,000.
Oh.
Yeah, $300,000. Yeah.
Okay.
And then for SG Enable one is about SG Enable is per pax per hire. I think it's about $20,000 per special needs you hire. And then the other one will be the NTUC, the CTC. They call it the CTC. Fund as well, so that will depends on the automation. And Enterprise Singapore actually provides funds for automations. But Enterprise Singapore has a criteria that your company has to be big enough, but not too big.
Yeah.
Below 100 million, but you have to big enough, like at least have 5 store or more, a chain store, and then they will come in to support. So that's one thing that Enterprise Singapore does. But they do provide support for automations and technology.
Yeah. I think the automation piece is definitely it's a funny touch point, right? Because on one hand, automation is great. Like it helps you to reduce your manpower and it allows you to be more efficient. But at the end of the day, if you're in F&B, it is a hospitality business, right? And so it really depends on whether you're going for something that's fast casual or if you're doing something that is somewhat experiential, right? So obviously like a McDonald's or like a fast casual place where you can tap on it and then the food just comes to you or you just pick it up, that's obviously one thing. But you also have to think about what you're trying to do when you get into F&B. Are you doing it because you want to feed people and you want them to be happy? Are you trying to make money? Like, look, what are you trying to do out of that? So the automation can both be a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Actually, the automation in Singapore is more like a curse. You know, the rest I know, what I share is I know So if you look at the whole robotic things, we have been doing this for the past 10 over years. I mean, if you tell your customers that the food is cooked by robot, no one will come.
Yeah.
I tell you, the whole restaurant will be empty. But this is a challenge about Singapore, you see.
Yeah.
So we like to see, we like to see people sweating it out.
That's why Wok does well, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
what
they're in
Wok
front of you.
You know, I remember like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, you look at Tong Lo actually have this first automated fried rice machine in Singapore in Resort World, or I think it's Sentosa. So I mean, it didn't really take off. I mean, after a few months, the whole thing dies out.
No wonder they went into a loss this year. I'm kidding.
Thank you. So I will open the floor now for a few questions. Do know that we are running a little bit over time, but maybe we can have one or two.
I think one thing that came up again and again was the idea of iteration and making sure we can find the market fit by staying adaptive. I think one challenge that I had when I was trying a home-based business, and I presume the same for cloud, was that we don't necessarily see the customer consuming the food and therefore get the reaction from the customer on what is going well and what isn't. So for small businesses who don't have that direct way of collecting that feedback from customers instantly, would you have any advice on how we might be able to get that feedback so that we can adapt and iterate?
Are you doing through a delivery app or are you doing it through where you still...
We're doing delivery.
Okay, like through a Deliveroo or like a Grab kind of thing, or like individual?
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
had pre-assigned blocks for deliveries, and then we did it in batches on weekly basis.
Yeah, so like we did that. We did batches also, especially for cocktails back in the day during COVID, and we used the Google form. It was very simple, right? You just say, please order by this date, and then we'll do a batch order. But I think that's where, again, it goes back to the whole bit of personalization, where you actually do send them a text and you say, hey, what went well and what didn't go well, right? I mean, from an F&B perspective, or in any retail business, you get customers sending you a message when it's either really good or they have a crappy experience, more so on the crappy experience piece. But I think that's where it depends on how much you care about the customer, right? And I think from that perspective, you can always send a survey right after that and say like, hey, tell me like what went well with this, and then give them some sort of benefit for giving you that feedback. Yeah.
The thing about surveys is also a challenge. There's an art to getting someone respond. So try like incentivization. I think it's good.
No, but I think the other thing I also realized the trend currently is that you need to have a social media presence. You know, those foods that those last very well. You know, they normally have a very strong social media presence. You know, end of the day you can be in a very crappy location, but your it's still full house.
Yeah.
That's why I realized the trend is. So yeah.
So how did you solve the issue of escaping for your partners? Because you have to train them and then keep them, give them a job, because I guess you've got back for customers. So how did you do that? And this is for a kitchen, right? Why did you in the end leave and finish up and then maybe get a different space?
I think for my part is that how you train them is that first of all we work with kitchen that already have SOP already. So basically they are big enough, they have their own central kitchen, they really do up. So the whole process is very simple. What we do is that we try to simplify like a QSR model. It's a quick service model. So basically everything comes with central kitchen, go there, heat up. Because at the end of the day, what we really wanted to help F&B is to scale. Because if it's too complex like a zi char store, it doesn't really make sense for me also. Then there's no point for them to scale. And then business is not scalable, doesn't make sense. So this is why we wanted them to be more like a SOP driven. You know, you have a very strong processes, and then this is where we comes in to tell them, hey, actually your model works. So for us, they treat us like more like a test bed. Whether the central kitchen will produce, go there, heat up, and becomes a test bed for them. Once they hit a test bed, they are able to expand very fast.
Yeah. And
Maybe we'll hold the question for why did he close, because the next panel is about making the numbers work for you. Yeah. So any last question before we move on to the third panel?
I'm just very curious about this cloud kitchen model. How do you make sure if I'm an F&B owner that my trade secrets remain with me and you're not going to steal my recipes, and how do I ensure that I am standing out, because you're going to be servicing so many different people?
I think for my point is quite simple. It's like anyway, for cloud kitchen models to work, for your model to be able to scale, you need to have a back-end SOP, a central kitchen to help you produce. So basically what you do is that you keep your trade secret, you have your kitchen, produce everything, like a McDonald's, you come from all sides, just go there. So you treat my cloud kitchen like your assembly house. It's basically your assembly place. It's a last touch, your final finishing. So from there, we just do the assembly for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So don't worry, your trade secret is safe.
It's important, right? In any business, it's also important thing about your IP, and how to protect it.
I think I just want to add one last point about iteration that I think Jisoo was talking about. So I think in terms of F&B in Singapore, one thing I've realized is that I don't know about Singaporeans in general, but people in general are rather fickle, right? And so fickle in the sense that you try one thing, you think the food's really good, but then a new concept opens and so you move on to the next one, right? And so I think what happens a lot of the time in Singapore is that by the time you try all the different F&B places and you go back to the first one, it's closed because you've tried everything else, right? Yeah. So one of the things I've realized that could potentially work, right? And I'm not saying that it's the solution, is that you have to figure out how to be able to change your I guess food offering on maybe every 6 months or every year, right? Where you're able to change it. I think if someone could figure out how to do that, where they take a rental, where they do it for 2 years or 5 years or whatever, but every 6 months you do something where you do rice bowls, and then after that you do Vietnamese food, and then after that you do a bakery. But if you're able to find a way to always renew the space, then that's where you're able to always keep the hype, right? Because I think what happens in the general space is hype is great for a period of time and then it dies down. Right? I think we've seen it all, like where donuts were a big thing for a while, then I don't know, croissants were a big thing and all that, and everything kind of like dies out after a while. So if you can figure out how to iterate beyond what you currently do, I think that's where you might actually survive for a more substantial period of time.
Actually, just on that point, there was a junior popping bar that used to do that.
Yes, they did that every 6 months.
But
They
then
did.
They're also closing down.
Yeah, they closed for a couple of reasons, which I won't get into like full details. But I mean, I think for them, actually, I think they were speaking about the last panel, location actually matters also, right? And I think they moved to Club Street. So they were our neighbor on Tras Street, and it was very small. It was a 10-seater, and they were always packed, like you had to stand around there. But I think once they moved to the other space where it was a bit more hidden, location matters. So in Singapore, what you also realize is that certain areas are hot for a period of time. So Keong Saik was hot during COVID, and then now, as an example, Orchard is hot. Then it's going to be Joo Chiat, and then after Joo Chiat, it's going to be Changi or wherever it is, right? And so it's not just hot in terms of your business model, but also hot in terms of where that locale is, right? So the problem with setting up F&B in Singapore in general is that your setup costs are very high, and I think the only people who make money are actually the construction companies.
Or the landlord.
And the landlord, right? Because renovation, you have to build, and then what you have to do, you have to restore the place, so you have to knock it down again also, right? And so So I guess if you truly want to be successful, you either become a contractor or you become a landlord.
But sometimes the contractor are moving inside F&Bs.
Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah. You know the Dan State House?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.